That's fine. Oh, you know what? That'd be fun. Just do it anyway. At some point in the interview, that'd be funny if you just randomly do it. Hang on.
Because the cat cages are right behind the computer. And they're used to like normally running around in the RV at this point, and I eventually feed them and stuff, but um they're gonna have to wait. And so they're sitting there looking at me like, ah!
Okay, well, hey, it's going. So let me. And I want to use the most of the raw stuff later as like we're going to share it with each person like you, but I'm also going to post these as in and of themselves down the line once we're done as kind of bonus things for people. So anyway, all right. So I'm with Tanya Yarbrough, Tanya F Yarbrough, which F I don't think stands for F, but anyways, she
Depends on your
hosted
mood.
that dog training show for God, like maybe at least 100 episodes or close to it.
Yeah.
And she was in the downtown LA era and in my apartment era. And one of my best friends, and she'll be talking about things from the dog training show point of view, but also as somebody who was somewhat outside of the asylum looking in. And so, anyways, so Tanya, how did you? We met in a funny way in church. We met once before, but then you came up to me when I was told by Elizabeth Thomas of It's Me, God. She told me one Saturday, go to church right now, go to church. And Elizabeth claims to be prophetic. And so she was like, right now, hang up, you go to church, I'm telling you. I'm like, what am I going to do? It's 4 o'clock on Saturday. Go to confession. I'm like, okay. So I go down 5 blocks to my local parish and St. Basil's in Koreatown. And I get in line for confession and I'm totally annoyed because I'm like, why, really, is this, what's the message here? And then you come walking by and you're like, hey, are you the Catholic comedian? And I guess you saw me at Family Theater or something, but
Yeah.
we started talking and we became friends ever since. Is that accurate, my
Yeah, that's
recollection?
pretty accurate. You actually asked me a question because I was walking back and forth. You
Uh-huh.
the priest hadn't shown up for confessions and mass was about to start in like less than 10 minutes. Like this is a big no-no, right?
Yeah.
So so I was walking back and forth. I think I had to pick up a book for my choir director because I was in the choir there. So I was carrying these books and blah blah blah. And you asked me a question, and I recognized you before you asked me the question, and then I just thought I'd say, "Hey, are you that Catholic comedian?" Um, yeah. So that was how we met. After that, I don't know how we kept connected. Actually, I don't think we exchanged numbers, or maybe we did.
I think I wrote you on Facebook or something, but we were
Yeah.
hanging out pretty quick after that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you know, in the Titans thing, I don't think you did the Hollywood year, right?
No,
So what
no.
year did we meet? Because like downtown came about in
You were in
2014.
between. You were in between. I think you
Oh
hadn't
wow,
yet
okay.
started. So I met you. I mean, maybe you were in the Hollywood
2013 it had
era,
to be.
but I didn't know about it. Like,
Yeah, it
so
had to be 2013 because things fell apart in August, and then you were a customer right away in downtown.
right. Yeah. And you were the one who suggested I do a show, and I was just getting my business started off the ground for uh, dog training. Well, I'd been in business for a couple of years. So I was like, oh, okay, great. You know, because I'd had acting lessons and voice lessons, and I was a singer. And I was like, well, and people since I was in seventh grade said, you should be a broadcaster with your voice, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah,
So I was like, yeah, why not? Let's give it a shot. And you were giving a lot of your friends it was pretty inexpensive to get started, you
yeah,
know.
we were really good businessmen.
Yeah, yeah, actually I got it. Do you remember the confrontation I got about
About what?
how cheap the price was for my shows?
Who confronted me?
No, no, not you.
Jake?
Jake, yeah, in his bare feet and all, closed the door and had this serious like stare down with me. He says, "You understand that you're getting a premium price here," and he was like
That's weird
pissed.
because we gave that premium price to like half the people we knew. I think.
I figured, yeah, and I was like going, and it's not like I asked for it. You were the one, and I have to credit you. You pushed me in front of that microphone I mean push in a nice way. I mean,
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
really like were encouraging and say, hey, do it. And I kind of like prayed about it and thought about it. I was like, for advertising purposes, I mean, if it goes debunk, if it just goes, whatever, it's not a horrible, it's not going to completely like bankrupt me. So, so I agreed to a half-hour show once a week.
Yeah.
And at some point, Jake comes in his bare feet, and I don't know, he might have been wearing bells at that point. I don't know. Um, Always smelling of something interesting. Uh, I don't mean illegal necessarily. I mean just interesting.
Yeah. He liked patchouli also, so he was really
Yeah. So,
fragrant.
something herbal, something, something in a candle shop, sometimes. So, so he came in and confronted me, and at that time I had 2 shows. Remember, I joined with Eric Weston.
Yeah, you
And
did.
remember the name of the show? I think it was just Eric.
Tanya and Eric Show.
Yeah. So, so he came in before Eric showed up. So it was like I had back-to-back shows because it was such a hassle to get downtown and pay for parking. Everything was not worth me having like 2 different days to come, blah, blah, blah. But he comes in knowing that I'm by myself, waiting for Eric to show up. He just like rails into me about like how cheap a price was, as if I'd like batted my eyebrow, eyelashes and like said, "Oh, can I have a cheaper price?" Like, I have no negotiation skills, so
Neither do I. I just gave way too much.
and my dog trainer clients will say the same thing because I'm a hard ass about the rules and dealing with problem dogs. But anyway, yeah, we were friends for a little while before that came up, and you were the one who said, hey, do this podcast, and hey, why don't you try comedy and stuff like that, which I will do again, just in a smaller area. But the show actually took off. It actually, I don't know if you knew this or not, but I had international followers.
What?
From Norway. I had kennel clubs from London and the UK area in general.
Oh my God.
I mean, it didn't have a huge viewership, but they were like, it was widespread. And to this day, even though it's been like 6 years since I've done it, I'm going to be relaunching it again once I get my technical stuff figured out, because I got new equipment and from the RV. But to this day, people say, I found your show and it was really helpful and I love it, and I did this and this and this. And I used to be able to refer to episode numbers to my clients and say, hey, so these things you need to teach your dog, go listen to this episode and then contact me for questions, that kind of thing. So it was actually a very helpful tool for me as far as a dog trainer. But it actually was really popular on a global scale.
Well,
small, but still on a global scale.
Yeah, but when you think about it, here's how I look at it. What I'm going to say when I'm interviewed for this is that even if we had, let's say, a typical show across the board, average maybe 300 to 500 listeners an episode or so, but when you think about that, if you're a comedian, that's like selling out the Comedy Store. You have as many or more people, or more than selling out the Laugh Factory. Yeah. And then when you think about the amount of, if you assume, which is probably a wrong assumption, that every listener was unique to the show, not repeat. Like Elizabeth Thomas, I was with her a couple weeks ago hanging out, and I said, you know what? You did over 100 episodes, and they all have, by now like 500 to 1,000 listeners because of all her blogs. So I said, you have reached, look at it like that you out of Clarksville, Arkansas, operating under your home, managed to reach a total of 50 to 100,000 people. And, and she was just like, wow, and it's, you got to look at it in those perspectives too, aside from the fact that, both of you did put a lot of work in and made a quality show,
Yeah. It was interesting because I would hear people say, I've binge listened to your podcast, Tanya, and I'm binge listening to them again, and I've referred them to friends. So
Wow.
people who had never met me in other states has heard about me through these podcasts, and not all of them seem to be available online still. So I'm just going to start from scratch when I relaunch. But yeah, I mean, that was like that experience of, you know, me learning through everybody else's mistakes, trying to launch this thing. I mean, seeing all the engineers go through the problems they were going through, in spite of the fact that they all had, you know, experience, most of them had a lot of experience in terms of like doing this sort of thing. These mostly young guys and some young gals were, you know, they would experience the technical stuff. And I was hone in on, I was like, okay, this is how they handled this problem with this audio issue. You know, I used to be a assistant sound editor for feature films.
Yeah.
So this was not completely out of my realm to understand what they were doing for problem solving and all that stuff. So it was a good learning experience in that sense. Having engineers, and I did some of them from my own home, from the condo as well later on.
Well, and you know, and you know, just so you know, we are I shipped 4 hard drives to Johnny O that we believe has everything we did in downtown era and possibly my apartment, or likely my apartment, because they're from my old tower, and he's organizing them right now, and we're hoping that we have them the way that Belcher held on to everything, but he had his perfectly in order, he claims. So we're trying to straighten it out, and we're going to be relaunching the website with every show that ever did more than a month of episodes. We're going to post up once it's fall. Yeah, so you'll be able to brag off of that. And then when you do your new thing, if I do get, you know, wait and see that we really do this. But if we do that, then I'd love to have you keep sending the new shows to Titans, or link to them at least, or whatever.
Okay.
So,
all right.
Yeah.
We'll
So
talk,
okay,
yeah,
so
we'll talk about that when it gets there.
Let's get to the odd stuff. Like, what, as a woman, it was mostly it was a lot of male centric as far as the guys, the people who hung out there. Although I'm proud, it was really diverse with some women, but I mean, you know, it was sort of like a boys' hippie frat house or something, I should say. But you know, any thoughts about, you know, what it was like? Some people have described, like, yeah, it was weird seeing random socks on the floor, and you could tell that somebody slept in the corner, and you know, stuff like that. And so,
yeah.
Everybody talks about the smell of incense at best and pot at worst.
Yeah, well, I would have to say that I'm sort of an unusual test case in terms of a woman's perspective, because I'm the only girl in my family. I raised, you know, I have 3 younger brothers. So I'm not uncomfortable with having like all males in the room. Like, that's not weird to me. It doesn't feel weird. So I'm not a good test subject for that. But indeed, because I grew up with 3 younger brothers, it was sometimes like walking into a boys' locker room, um, in terms of like random, like there was one office room that was completely, you know, like almost no furniture, and maybe some buckets overturned and some like weird tapestry scarf thing that looks like should be some part of a ritual on the ground. I mean, you have to come from that perspective. I'm driving downtown. I'm parking in a building that was probably in the 1930s, not originally a parking building, because it's so tiny and it's been changed into a parking building, but it was once like a sweatshop, office building, whatever. I'm walking through, you know, urine coated streets with homeless people who are violent, like are violently attacking things near me. Okay. I'm walking through that, thinking about what I have to do, go into a mall area that is surrounded by office building stuff as well. So you get into the mall area and it's like, oh, it's bright lights, it's clean, there's music playing. You're like, I've reached civilization. And then you go to the lobby that's the entranceway to all the offices upstairs, and you check in with the receptionist, and then you go into in the security guard, and you go into the, you know, on the elevator, and you go to the right floor, and there's another receptionist there, and they eventually get to know you, so you don't have to check in per se. You go to and there's like all these, nice lobbies, there's conference rooms, there's a printing room that's shared by everyone on the floor. You walk into this office room and all of a sudden, boys' locker room. So you're like, I just left the damn streets. You know what I'm saying?
Oh my God.
But I have to say, at least there was no needles or defecation on the floor. And
that was in another room.
Yeah. That I probably never entered. And wouldn't. But I had so you walk into this, and then when you got to the actual studio where all the recording was done, there would be paraphernalia around from some jam session the night. One or two instruments, again, random clothing draped over the couch. And of course it was a really tiny room, and I know that at nighttime, in the evening, it was much more intense in terms of numbers of people and all that stuff. You had the pajama party, you had that large group, a girl group that did their thing. I'm not going to even say what the show I think was called, but
was it TNA Talk Sex? You could just say
well, there no, and then there was like Snatch Power.
Oh, that one. Oh God.
Yeah,
we're trying to find them.
Yeah. So I know that was like heavily populated. So by the time I came in like 2:00 in the afternoon, I think that's around when I did it. I don't remember. Anyway, it was like afternoon. So it had changed significantly. I'm sure it was cleaned up significantly compared to, but there was still like remnants of whatever craziness happened the night before. And it was always the night before, like every night seemed like that was, because there was a time I was coming in a couple times a week, and then I changed it. But so yeah, it was like this little contrast. You're in the depths of Los Angeles smut whatever, and then you go into like bright lights, clean, professional. You take a breath, you're gonna come in, you're gonna like hold it together, make sure your voice doesn't get all messed up. You come in and you're like this. But yeah, I mean, and depending on, you had to be prepared for either being really cold, because there's all those windows right behind you, so you had to be you're gonna be either really cold or really hot. And I used to take Rambo in with me because he was training at the time to be a service dog, and so he used to come with me. I don't know if you remember that or knew about that. But they would let him come in, and he would be part of the show. We generally just slept under the chair like he's supposed to. He's part of the show for me, not necessarily, part of the dialogue, etc. But yeah, it was kind of, and to be honest, I was okay with it. It was just when you had guests, when you had guests for your podcast and you wanted a little less of a locker room smell.
Yeah.
It was a little awkward. I think that was the only time I felt a little awkward about it. I had a veterinarian come in. I had some people that had these cool websites for helping find lost pets and things like that. And you're just like, sorry.
Wow.
Sorry about the random clothing or the smell.
Oh no, you mean we didn't keep it cleaned up for the guests? Oh God.
Well, I mean, you can straighten it up, but when you have a bunch of guys hanging out for long periods of time, and I'm pretty sure people were sleeping there overnight. It just, there's not a lot of good ventilation there. So it did eventually become part of the carpet, so, but that's, those are my memories. Some of the engineer, well, actually, I would say all of the engineers that I worked with on that dog training show were really great people. And it's same with on the Tanya and Eric Show, really great people, like fun to work with and be around. So I was grateful for that, because those are the people that mattered in terms of like in the moment of doing the show. You want an engineer that's not only knows what they're doing, but has got a good attitude. And I can't say anything bad about anybody that was there working the board. So I was really
sure
at that. Yeah.
Okay.
Mattered.
Well, thanks. I appreciate your time.
You're welcome.
And I'm going to pause, but we'll keep talking. Hang on.
Okay.
Come on. Oops.